Welcome back to the Work Culture podcast. Today we've got David Miller. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's bought, sold, invested, advised like a dozen plus companies. And he's right now the founder of Alchemy of Scale, which is a business coaching firm. And I'm sure he can give us more insight. David, how about I just pass it to you? Introduce yourself. Give us just a high level. Who are you?
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. I love your unique purple rimmed on the bottom glasses. That makes the energy on this call a heck of a lot better. So thank you for that. I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee. I lived in Atlanta for 20 years. I built, bought, sold, merged, spun off investments that I founded, acquired, invested in from an angel perspective, as you had mentioned. Been in everything from the financial and accounting space to fashion design to cannabis to neuroscience, advising, things like that. So I really just focus on juxtaposition when it comes to business and my approach, and that whole, even though it scientifically doesn't break down like this, left brain, right brain type of thinking, logic and intuition, creativity and process, really just clashing everything that you're doing from multiple different views so you can have that balance of that method and magic.
Yeah. It's such an interesting mix of different industries and verticals you've been a part of. So we'll dive into that. And of course, over time, you've had to hire people, you've worked with people, and you've come to realize, I'm sure, that almost every business problem is a people problem. I'm sure you see that in your coaching as well. And of course, what we talk about primarily here on the show is culture, building culture, struggles that we have. So it'll be interesting to dive in because you're going to have different perspectives, not only from different industries and acquisitions and mergers and all that, but also as a coach, right? Working with executives that are also in the throes of dealing with these people issues that we encounter all the time. But of course, I have to ask you the same first question we ask all of our guests, which is, what is a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget?
Oh, wow. I'll just go super deep, super vulnerable right off the bat and see where it takes us, Jason. So we have this saying in my CEO forum and forums I've been in the past: how many $10,000 mistakes did you make this month? Whether it's a decision that you made or chose not to make or didn't see coming. So, and we kind of joke about those because we learn from them and it allows us to be stronger and flip things around on its head. But I would probably say my $10 million mistake, easy, was not understanding how to trust. Wow. I trusted a hedge fund trader and lost trusted clients, millions and millions and millions of dollars, which in turn, and rightfully so, cost our firm trust, which was the most important thing, but also cost our firm millions and millions and millions of dollars. So that's a tough way to learn how to. Ultimately, I exited from that business because it was the best thing for me. But that's a tough way to learn what trust is. But, that was definitely the top of my list as far as failures and painful mistakes.
Yeah. And I know that part of your coaching work is talking about trust. So let's just dive right into that, right? Like, sometimes I hear people talk about trust and they're like, their struggle, their mistakes are not cultivating a culture of trust, right? Or not being able to trust. It sounds like you were the flip of that. You over trusted. And by the way, I've been there and done that with a merger, with an acquisition. So what have you learned from that? Like, obviously you're not stepping away from trusting people or valuing trust, but you have a different outlook. So dive into that with me more.
Yeah. For your listeners and audience, Jason, it's really broken down into three components for me. The first one is understanding it on an emotional level, then understanding how to approach that. And then third, understanding the logic component of trust and weaving that into the emotional component. And just to clear the air, one thing that I'm a fan of are catchy phrases because there's so much meaning and depth behind them. But when it comes to trust, as with many things, you have to really investigate those catchy phrases because they will confuse people. It confused me. I didn't understand it well. And just a general thing not relative to trust would be like silence is golden. That's a great phrase. But, I had a founder in one of my prior companies that I invested in would say silence is golden when it comes to communication issues with employees. And I'm like, yeah, silence is golden, but there's certain times where you need to communicate with people, right? So, and I think that's a common problem, not shaming or blaming that gentleman. I think, that's just part of it. So one of the things that needs to be demystified and better understood is trust is not given, it's earned. That is true, but it is absolutely not true in an element as well.
Yeah.
So are you with me? If you are, then I'll keep moving. If not, I'll go into 3 pieces. If you got any more questions, fire away.
So I'm curious, you said that trust is given, not earned. Is that what you said, right? Or you said it's earned, not given.
Sorry. Yeah, flipped it around. Sorry. Trust is earned, not given.
Oh, that's interesting. Because in my previous consulting work, I would have disagreed. I would have said it the other way around. So, and it's because of that first lever you're talking about, the emotion, right? Emotion. And I'm so curious to get into this, like, because going from emotion to logic, I mean, trust for the most part, to me, seems illogical, right? Which is why emotion, I'm sure, is your first lever there. But I don't want to I don't want to steer this heavily. I want you to steer us. So why don't you how would you define trust? Like, do you have like a nice high level, easy to grasp and remember definition of trust?
Yeah, for sure. And just preface that trust is given, not earned, or trust is earned, not given. That's one of those surface level catchy phrases that really needs to be investigated, and that's what we'll do. So for me, trust is an energy to emotionally bond with someone. And it's not to me, it's the logic component of trust is not involved until later. So that entails an initial relationship of being emotionally vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads into the second piece of, well, how do we do that? Us as human beings, we all have a certain level or degree of traumas. We all have emotional baggage. So how do we be vulnerable in a relationship that we haven't even, quote, established yet? Mm-hmm. And so what I like to do as far as like how I treat my energy going into a relationship is that, whether you had significant other issues, sibling issues, mother, father, personal relationship issues, just be okay that that's present. They're as humans, we're faulty. Just be okay that that's present, accept that, and bring all that good energy that you have with everything you've done and push that and radiate that to the person that you have a relationship with in that first meeting. And this is all a feeling. So trying to think about this isn't going to do any good. You just got to feel it. And when you go in and establish that, because trust is given to me in the beginning, it's not earned in the beginning. To establish a super strong connection with somebody, especially when you get that intuitive sense in the beginning, that is super important. And I'll ask you, Jason, have you ever had an encounter with someone and that emotional connection just seems stronger than normal? And there's just something there.
Of course, yeah.
And sorry if that's a surface level question, but I ask that because I think that we all have. So flip that around to have some self-awareness with oneself and saying, okay, did I have that emotional baggage cleaned and cleared whenever I was, whenever I felt that energy from them? Was I able to send that same message back to them? Because just because you're receiving it doesn't mean that you're giving it, even though you might be feeling it. So that's the second piece, is how you're sending that energy to establish trust. And then the third piece is where logic comes into play for me. But you still have to involve the emotional component. And that's where the trust is earned part comes in as well. And that's where they say trust but verify.
Yeah.
So you have this relationship established with somebody, whether it's business, whether it's personal, romantic, whatever it might be, and something just doesn't seem right. And even if you have a strong base level foundation, or maybe not so strong base level foundation of trust with someone, that's where, logical brains, the neocortex can come into play and say, what doesn't make sense about this? You know, John Doe said this, and these two parts don't make sense. Let me investigate that. Let me verify it. Let me directly ask John and see what he says. And what I've found, whether it's asking your children if they did chores and you think you're lying to them, or it's in a business setting that involves an important business decision. If you approach that contra party or that other person and authentically ask them with curiosity, what doesn't make sense to you, then the people, in my experience, that are trustworthy are more than willing to show that. Getting defensive is usually not part of that equation.
Yeah. So let me see if I can like kind of track with what you're going with what you're saying here. And I think about things again from like previous frameworks that I've used around trust, right? So initially there's this emotional component, in large part because of the irrationality of trust, right? If it started with logic, we would just go, all right, let's pull out a spreadsheet and do all the data points that are trust building data points, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So the emotion is that first lever of, are we embracing that vulnerability that's required with trust? And then we start building that kind of track record of meeting expectations and all of the other things that are involved. And then I think what you might be referring to in large part with the logic piece is when trust goes awry, when it actually gets eroded for one reason or another. Like we have now an inflection point, a choice to make, right? Do we like bail on that entire relationship? Do we lean in and just keep trusting blindly? Or do we now engage that prefrontal cortex, that neocortex part of our brain and go, all right, what's logic say? And then you go and you talk to that person and you start verifying using logic and reason and making generous assumptions. But also, I assume, since both of us have stories of being screwed over in the past, we're also like cautious about it and trying to engage logic on the level of, should I keep trusting this person? So am I on track with kind of what you're saying here?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think there's you picked that up spot on. I think I need to listen to you about trust a little bit, but the where the in my experience where a lot of the nuances come in is having that self-awareness of what your traumas or emotional baggage is. Because when something doesn't make sense, it may not make sense logically, but also may not make sense emotionally. So when you're seeking to understand with curiosity, to verify with them, the more self-aware you are as to why that doesn't seem right to you helps in how you approach the other person. But I love your piece of being very cautious, looking for those minefields that might be out there so you can approach it methodically and ultimately strengthen that trust in the other person, or decide that, yeah, hey, this is the earned part and the bank account has drained from a debit perspective and they don't need to get so much credit.
So one of the things that you are definitely bringing out that I hadn't ever seen as part of the trust framework is that self-awareness and looking into the past. That's not something we like to talk about on business calls and coaching or on a business podcast. Sorry, listeners, but you're here, so stay with us, right? Like we have to realize that there are emotion-driven reasons that we respond in certain ways. We have our internal drivers and we have our experiences, the things we've learned, but there's also that trauma. There's also those just bigger experiences that they're sitting with us somewhere in our hearts, in the back of our heads, and they are going to impact how we respond in these situations. And so you dig into that, and it's far more than just practical advice. It's like, all right, time for therapy class, right?
Yeah. And, there's a lot of taboo around mental health, what that means. And I think as a society, we're learning and understanding that in an interesting new way. But approaching this from a perspective for me is, one of my 7 personal core values is power of wisdom. And then another one is actually, it ties into that, They all tie in together, but one of the other ones is synergistic collaboration. So, you know, having that approach of always willing to learn, always willing to better yourself and build yourself up. That's addressing your issues, and showing vulnerability there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that that's seen as a strength. It may not be fun. It may be a initially painful process, but after feeling through it, in my experience, it's something that just strengthens your trust with others.
Yeah, that vulnerability word. I mean, I think Dr. Brene Brown is who we credit for that word coming into the fold. However long ago that was, 5, 10 years ago, I don't know. Where she's got this TED talk. She's talking about shame and vulnerability, and at first everybody's like, "Why would you talk about that?" And the next thing you know, Jeff Bezos is hiring her, to come and talk to the executive team at Amazon, right? And these big leaders all over the world are now going, like, not systemic vulnerabilities, not vulnerabilities in our company, right? But personal vulnerability. What the hell does that mean? And is it really that important? And it turns out, yeah,
Kind
pretty
of
damn
is.
important.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So how have you seen your understanding of trust? How has that grown, and how has that, and maybe this has to be two separate questions, but my initial gut is to ask you, how has that changed over time, and how has it impacted culture with the various companies that you've been part of?
Oh man, that's a amazing question. So I don't know how many years ago it was, Jason, but I really took to Tony Hsieh with Zappos and how he was able to build a culture beyond imagination in my mind at the time. And so a lot of those practices that he did when he was alive, I tried my best to follow that, establishing core values for the various companies that I've built. But one specific situation comes to mind. So a company that built that was in the financial and accounting space. Typically, accountants and financial people can be seen as a little dry, not as extroverted as others. And we certainly had a lot of people that were like that. But there's differences in every group. And so one of our core values with that company was challenge the norm, and challenge the norm in a way of not being abrasive, but approaching it with situations with curiosity. Kind of how that trust element comes into play. If something doesn't make sense, let's verify that a little bit. Let's challenge it. So we had a company, let's call it, we had this incentive program to where if they wanted to get a tattoo that was reflective of one of our core values, it was their choice. They just happened to, all of them happened to choose challenge the norm. Then the company would, one, pay for the tattoo. We would all go to the same tattoo artist, and then they would also get free tax returns for life. And so we had one lady that just was super pumped about it. She had, an arm sleeve and added to it. There were two other ladies. We had a group of 5 total. And this was like, a 30-person company. So it wasn't like a huge, super large company, but 2 of them hadn't gotten them before. So there's a level of trust there with your company culture, and one of them got a black sheep for challenge norm. Another one had a peach. Our company was obviously in Atlanta, so it had to have something with the peach name in it. One of them got the company logo on their hands. Another one got challenge the norm across their midsection. And of course, I had to get a large 6-inch one to put my money where my mouth was and walk the walk. So
Yeah, that's a wild ask, man. I mean, obviously you weren't asking people to get a company logo tattooed, but still, like, you first told me, I'm that, like, you started that story, I'm like, wow, you put the cult in culture, didn't you? No, but that's fascinating though. Whatever came of that? What was the kind of ripple effect of the people that did partake, and like, how did that impact overall culture?
I think it made a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The fact that that program was thrown out there, especially given the overall demographics of the industry. But with me on a trust level with the employees, there was a sense of trust there that, hey, I really know that Jessica believes in challenging the norm. She got it tattooed across her midsection.
Hmm.
So when it comes to embracing company core values, as you know, the trite saying goes, just because they're on a wall like they were at Enron and embezzled billions of dollars from Americans, it doesn't mean that it's being carried out. It's like what actions are being taken, not only what actions are being taken, but what actions are being recognized by the employees and then held up and used as an example. Are you hiring and are you firing based upon those core values?
Yeah.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. Is, you know, in our town hall meetings, we would go through, hey, this is, you know, jive with Jugar was one of our core values. And if someone had something that they did with a customer or with another employee that amplified that and spoke to it, then we rewarded it.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
for to answer your question, to kind of lightly spread it into the other employees that didn't want to get the tattoo, we had Tattoo Tuesday, and we ordered all these stick-on tattoos of the company values, and did that for a couple months or so.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, another thing you said that kind of surprised me is your personal core values. You have 7. Like, I mean, you took our assessment, the Aptive Index assessment, and I did see that you have that high precision driver. Like, only somebody with that driver could remember 7 core values. I have 2. That's all I can keep track of.
Yeah, I thought about that for quite a bit of time. You know, you have all those different exercises where it goes, hey, you know, which words feel the, you know, resonate the most with you. And so I did numerous of those exercises and just let those, I think it was originally like 9 or 10, sit with me for months and months, and then, you know, kind of chiseled it down, and they've been the same since, I guess, 2018. I thought I was going to change them and it's going to evolve a little bit, but right now they're still the same.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You strike me as somebody where those core values really are a driving force for you. Again, they're not just like posters on a wall. You know, they're your own personal core values, and they're part of what moves you through the world.
And that's one of the things, Jason, that I look for in founders and CEOs is, I mean, I don't expect them to spit off their core values by rote, but asking them what their personal core values are. Not only that, what are their family core values and what are their business core values that they have within their company. And you can get a gauge whenever you're asking that to a company, whether you're investing in them or whether you want to work for them, how much does that actually mean to them? You know, is that just a poster that's going to go up on the wall, or have they given thought about it? And they don't have to have it all flushed out, but you know, that's a
You're not looking
big
for
tell
somebody
for
who
me.
has it all memorized with statements to follow them. You're looking for the heart.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
So I went down a little rabbit hole there. Sorry about that.
Hey, like, you know, that's I think what conversational podcasts do, is we just go down rabbit holes. Might as well be the name of the show. Well, man, this has been
That's a great idea. I may coin that.
Yeah. Just down the rabbit hole. All right. I'm about to be on a podcast. I forget the name, but he was on our podcast, and his is just like, it's like BS something or other, because his name is Brandon Stanchuk, but also BS, right? And so he's just like, yeah, we just talk about interesting things. Oh, I should probably remember the name of that. Sorry, Brandon, if you're listening. I'll put it in the show notes to make up for it.
That's BS, Jason. Come on.
Yeah, I know it is. It is total BS. That's my lack of memory and details. Well, let me give you just an opportunity to give a shameless plug. Maybe it's more about Alchemy of Scale. Maybe it's something else you're working on. What do you want to tell our listeners about?
Yeah, I'll do more of a broad stroke learning piece and that does weave into Alchemy of Scale. Like what we talked about, what you brought up, wanted to discuss, Jason, is key when it comes to running a business, when it comes to growing a business and understanding employees within a business. Obviously, your personal life outside of that as well. And that's really the core meaning of personal alchemy. And that's not turning metal into gold like a lot of people know the alchemists in the book from Paulo Coelho, probably best known. But it's taking a juxtaposition with yourself, with your feelings, with your logic, and merging almost every situation you encounter from different perspectives and molding that together to get something in between. So when you look at a business, do you have personal alchemy in yourself? Do you have that molding of perspectives in yourself so you can apply that to your business? And how do you apply that to your business? Whether it's building trust, whether you want to grow your company exponentially, or whether you just want to strengthen culture. There's alchemy in all that you do. So always continue to learn, always try and live out your personal legend through alchemy is one of the things that I believe in. And we do that throughout at Alchemy of Scale and business coaching.
Very cool. And if people are interested in what you're talking about and want to learn more, want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
I would say go to scalingmagic.com, which is under construction. Will be launched here shortly in the next month. We had to do some redos, but yeah, scalingmagic.com, or just hit me up on Instagram. It's davidmiller.buzz.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we'll try to make sure we get those in the show notes. And then, the good thing is by the time this launches, that website will probably be up. So yeah, y'all go there right now, scalingmagic.com. This has been a fantastic conversation. We're going to end with our quick fire. So I'm going to give you a this or that. You just kind of tell me what comes to mind for you. Tacos or sushi?
Sushi.
Roller coaster or water slide?
Roller coaster.
All right. Play sports or watch sports?
Play.
Okay. Do you have any favorites?
Basketball. Watch is lacrosse. I would have played if we had it, but I enjoy watching my son play. So that's kind of a
Gotcha.
a mixed one there.
I'm going off topic. That's my bad. DC or Marvel?
Yeah.
If you're a nerd.
Marvel.
Okay. And then coffee or energy drink?
Energy.
All right. Thank you so much. I know those are a little silly, but they're fun.
No, that was awesome.
David Miller, you find him at davidmiller.buzz on Instagram and scalingmagic.com. Of course, you can find his name on LinkedIn and looking for Alchemy of Scale. This has been a great conversation, definitely a unique topic, diving into trust. So thank you so much, David, for being on and bringing your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason.
All right. Well,
Thanks for
you've
having
been
me.
listening to the Work Culture Podcast, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.